We are here to win. And we are going to win. And we're going to win big. We have to have one singular focus on trying to hoist that trophy at the end of the year. Our expectations for our program, what we're going to be about. The first one is hard work. There's no excuse not to give everything you have every single day.
It's the beginning of a new Cowboy basketball season, which means another episode of Countdown to Tipoff. We're here in the North Dining Hall. We have Boone Pickens Stadium and Gallagher-Iba Arena right behind us. I'm Brian Schroll here with Richard Dinson.
And I'm Taylor Hernandez alongside Luke Garza. So the team the Cowboys are playing tonight, Pepperdine, finished 8th in the West Coast Conference last season and lost their 2 leading scorers coming into this season. Forward Nolan Taylor will look to fill the role of Chris Reyes. This team has a lot of young guards like Elijah Lee and Eric Cooper Jr., who they will rely on to attempt to fill the place in their offense Lamont Murray Jr. left. Murray led the team in points and field goals for the past 2 seasons.
And that matchup against Pepperdine marks the first of 13 non-conference games for the Cowboys. That non-conference schedule is highlighted by a visit from Wichita State, which is ranked 7th in the nation. They'll also face Florida State in the Orange Bowl Classic, and Mike Boynton will get a chance to return home to Brooklyn when the Cowboys play Texas A&M in the Legends Classic. Texas A&M sophomore Robert Williams is a protected top 10 pick in the NBA draft next year, and the Cowboys have a top draft pick of their own probably.
Well, he's a guy who just hopes to get better every year. I mean, and to me, he has gotten better every year. In fact, he decided to join us for another year. That man's name is Jeffrey Carroll. He's a guy who had the opportunity to declare for the NBA draft, and initially he actually did, but he kind of just had this hunch to return, and he knew there was just some unfinished business here in Stillwater, so why not come back and improve his stock? I mean, he's a guy who's worked his way up the ladder. He redshirted his true freshman year, and then every year it seems he amps up his scoring average and his contributions. I mean, yeah, over the past few years we've had guys like Jawan Evans, Phil Forte, LeBron Nash, guys who were supposed to be the guy. But then over the years you've seen Jeffrey Carroll has constantly stepped up in clutch situations. I remember 2 years ago, I think it was at Texas Tech, or it was versus Texas Tech, where he hit a clutch 3-point shot. I talked about on last year's show how he got the ball during the big game against Bedlam where Jawan hit 42. So Jeffrey Carroll is going to be a big player this year, but unfortunately we have some bad news about Carroll. In fact, our own Jackson Bolin will tell us more.
Yes, we have breaking news this evening as senior guard Jeffrey Carroll has been withheld from play indefinitely. I will now read the message we were sent from OK State Athletics late this afternoon. Oklahoma State senior guard Jeffrey Carroll is being withheld from play pending the ongoing review of the men's basketball program. Carroll will continue to practice with the team, which will open the season at home tonight against Pepperdine. Now, Carroll isn't the only Cowboy facing trouble, as both Devon Dillard and Zach Dawson were suspended yesterday for violating team rules. Dillard was finally cleared to play after suffering a foot injury, but wasn't expected to play tonight. Dawson was expected to contribute off the bench, but it looks like he's going to have to wait a little longer to make his college debut. Guys?
Well, every college basketball team is known for something, and for Oklahoma State, that's becoming the play of the point guard. In the past decade, the Cowboys have had Byron Eaton, Keaton Page, Marcus Smart, and Jawan Evans. So who's next? Last year, fans saw some of Brandon Averette behind Evans. That doesn't mean he has a starting job this year. In the exhibition game, grad transfer Kendall Smith got the start, but played just 1 minute more than Averette. For this year, though, it is more about the combination of the two guards and how they play together.
They're our 2 best on-ball defenders, and with the emphasis so much being defensively for us, we're still trying to figure things out offensively a little bit. They give us a different look. They give us an opportunity to pressure the ball, but also to put a lot of pressure
freshman
on the
Zach Dawson. The Cowboys find themselves a little depleted at the position, but Averette and Smith should give them quality minutes at the point. Now the duo combined for 14 points and 9 assists in the exhibition game. They're going to continue to try to be that score and deliver that they were, but they also need to focus on that point man in the pressure defense that the Cowboys play this season.
Well, I think it's interesting that Boynton has decided to go with the 2 combo guards instead of your traditional point guard and shooting guard. A lot of us, including myself, thought that Lindy Waters would be the starting shooting guard. But when we come back from break, we'll take a look more about the Mike Boynton coaching situation as well as some offensive schemes he might run this season.
Rising from the plains of Oklahoma is a destination for scholars and thinkers, dreamers and doers. This is where hope, hard work, and integrity create tomorrow's catalyst for change. And excellence is the standard demanded not only of your head, but your heart. This is Oklahoma State University, America's brightest orange.
This is your time to grow, to become a leader in every respect, by serving others before yourself, and together achieving far more than you ever thought possible. You're not just here for an education, but to forever color your future.
It's an attitude, it's a pride.
It represents community, it represents family.
It's something that I know that I'll always be able to come back to.
The color orange means everything to me.
There is nothing muted about it.
The color orange is so bold and bright, and it represents the spirit and energy that every cowboy has. How can you not bleed orange would be my question.
55,000 people, and it's all orange, and it really is an amazing, amazing sight.
Orange is that feeling when you're more proud of anything than you've ever been in your whole life. It's something that you have to put yourself in to really appreciate. We're cowboys.
Welcome back to Old State TV's Countdown to Tipoff.
We're here in the North Dining Hall. We have Boone Pickens Stadium, Gallagher-Iba Arena, and Hall of Fame Avenue right behind us.
All right, Luke, so basketball season starts today. What do you got for us?
Well, the only consistent thing about Oklahoma State head coaches recently is there's been a new one each of the past 3 years. I took a deeper look into the coaching carousel that's happening in Stillwater.
It's difficult to gain momentum as a program when you have inconsistencies in leadership.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what has plagued the Cowboys recently. Tonight marks the third consecutive year in which the Cowboys have started a season with a new head coach. Travis Ford's 8-year reign as coach ended in March of 2016 after a first-round loss to Oregon in the NCAA tournament. The loss marked Ford's 5th consecutive in the Big Dance. Overall, Ford went 1-6 during March Madness with a 1-1 record in the NIT. Now he's coaching at St. Louis. Brad Underwood came up from SF Austin before the 2016 season and took Stillwater by storm. Underwood assimilated himself quickly and received an abundance of support after leading the Cowboys back to the NCAA tourney. Optimism for this season was high until Underwood unexpectedly bolted for a new job at Illinois. This year's new face is Mike Boynton, a former OSU assistant looking to erase some doubt and mitigate some off-the-court troubles, all while getting his first kick at this whole head coaching thing. And his familiarity with the roster should bode well for him as he adjusts to his new gig. Here's a look at how his predecessors have done during the past couple of years. After a quick look at the numbers, it's easy to see who had a better final year at OSU. Underwood had a much better record, and even though his defense gave up more points, his point differential was better. So, how will Boynton fare in his first official game at OSU? We're not too far away from finding out.
It'll be interesting to see how Boynton does in his first year as a head coach. And being a first-time coach means that not very many people know how he got started. So our own Nicholas Ramsey tells us more about Boynton's path to Stillwater.
Mike Boynton started his basketball career at the University of South Carolina in 2000. The Brooklyn native averaged 9.9 points and 3.4 assists his senior year as a Gamecock. After graduating from South Carolina with a degree in African American Studies, he became a graduate manager for the Furman Paladins. After 1 year in Greenville, he moved back to South Carolina to be an assistant coach for Coastal Carolina. He would stay there 2 seasons and move to Northwest South Carolina, where he was the assistant coach at Wofford for the 07-08 season. After that, he would make his first big jump in 2008 when he returned to his alma mater, South Carolina. In 2013, he left South Carolina and went to the Lone Star State. He joined Brad Underwood at Stephen F. Austin. After making the NCAA tournament and having an impressive showing, Underwood and Boynton landed in Stillwater in 2016. Boynton was the assistant coach in Underwood's lone year after Underwood left for Illinois, though. March 27th changed Boynton's life.
This is a pretty unbelievable day in a lot of ways. At 35 years old, I really did think I would be a head coach. Had no idea I'd be the head coach at Oklahoma State University. Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of people that get credit for me standing here today. Dr. Hargis, Mr. Holder, who've given me this appointment, the board, thank you guys. The city of Brooklyn that raised me, all my friends I grew up with.
Looking back, Boynton went from Brooklyn to South Carolina, stayed in the Carolinas, not believing that he would move to Texas and be the coach at Oklahoma State. But who believed in him since day one?
My dad, my mom, my sisters.
Such an emotional and memorable day that was for Boynton. And you know, with him talking about the past coaches, you might wonder what exactly is his style that he's going to run. I mean, he was kind of an Underwood disciple. So will he run the infamous spread offense? Well, let's take a closer look. Well, let's see. As we talked about earlier, he runs 2 guards, 2 point guards. So you see the top of the other combo guard, Zach Dawson, is at the top of the free throw line. Kendall Smith will initiate the offense. You see your 3-man, Tavares Shawn, will come around on the screen for Mitchell Solomon. And so that gives you options. Shawn gets the ball off this handoff, and now your point guard will cut all the way down. You see he cut all the way down, go baseline, and now your other guard, Zach Dawson, comes up from the top of the free throw line as the new primary ball handler. He has options. Kendall Smith now will set a down screen that opens up Cam McGriff, your 4-man, for where he could get the ball on a post-up. But because Mitchell Solomon has been working on his jumper over the summer, he takes the 3-pointer because he can make it. And so that's the first time. No, on play number 2, freeze it again. You see, once again, Kendall Smith is the primary ball handler. He clears everything out. He sees a cut. If there's nothing there, then he can go one-on-one, isolation. He draws the defense in for Mitchell Solomon to get the jab. That's play number 2. Play number 3, our final play. Let's kind of really break this down. So right here, you see how much space is on the court, just all that space. Everybody kind of clears out, and the pick and pop from Averett and Solomon. Solomon can shoot the shot, but he gives it back to his point guard, and his point guard knocks down the jumper. So you see in this new Boynton offense, it's just a lot of movement. It's kind of not as much cutting as it was in Underwood, but it's a lot of space game. You can expect a lot of pick and rolls, pick and pops. So it's not really a new thing. It's more of a wrinkle. So, I mean, I think we actually might have a boost in the offensive efficiency if the players buy in, which it seems like they are buying in. So I'm excited to see what Boynton brings.
Well, there are a lot of times where you don't really need set plays when you have a player who can create on his own like Jeff Carroll. But now that we know Jeff Carroll's not going to be with the Cowboys anymore, those plays and that motion that you mentioned is going to be more pivotal to the Cowboys' success offensively.
Yeah, they'll definitely need those high ball screens from Solomon and McGriff to kind of open up that floor and give some space for some shooters or some drive like we saw with Kendall Smith dumping it off to Mitchell Solomon.
Definitely. And when we come back, we'll take a look at the women's basketball game that was earlier this morning.
I am trying to study over here. Unbelievable.
Welcome back to O State TV's Countdown to Tip-Off. You know, we talk about, we're here for a pregame show for the men's basketball game. But Taylor, actually, the women's played earlier today, and you were actually at the game. They went against the University of Incarnate Word Lady Cardinals. Tell us about that game.
That was a crazy game. Normally a game you have either an offensive standout, a defensive standout. This whole team stood out. This was a crazy game at GIA. It was actually Kids Day at GIA today as the Cowgirls opened up their season against the Incarnate Word Cardinals. OSU had a huge 18 steals and was nearly 40% from the three-point line. Lauren Goodwin was responsible for 8 of those steals and also led the team with 18 points and 10 assists. The Cowgirls were able to take advantage of the Cardinals' 30 turnovers and took this game 86-35. Now, OSU is going to try and keep this momentum into next week when they face off against Wichita State. Another huge part of this team is Kaylee Jensen. Jensen led the Big 12 in scoring, rebounding, and double-doubles last season. She averaged nearly 19 points a game. Kaylee Jensen joins us live. Thank you so much, Kaylee, for taking the time to talk to us. I know you're super busy right now, but you were really surprisingly dominant last season. Do you think teams are going to be ready for you this year?
It wouldn't be surprising to me, but this year we have a lot of outside shooters, and so if they want to do that, they're just going to have to pay with our shooting from the outside, so let them come.
So it's your senior year here at Oklahoma State. What's been your favorite part of these last couple years?
Honestly, it wouldn't even have to really do with the basketball. I think more of the friendships I've made. You said all 4 years I've been here, so I've met a lot of new different people, and so I think the friendships that I've made that I'll continue to have coming out of here has been the best thing.
So what are some of the goals you have for yourself and for the team this season?
This year would be to hopefully lead the league again in rebounding and scoring, but I'd also like to be Big 12 Player of the Year. I think that's something that everyone kind of dreams of. And then as a team, I would love to make it back to the NCAA tournament and get as far as we can. Sweet 16, Elite 8, as far as we can get. I think that'd be great.
Thanks again for talking with us, Kaylee, and good luck this season.
Brian sit down with OSU color commentator John Holcomb, who previews this upcoming season. You're watching O State TV's Countdown to Tip-Off.
Rising from the plains of Oklahoma is a destination for scholars and thinkers, dreamers and doers. This is where hope, hard work, and integrity create tomorrow's catalyst for change. And excellence is the standard demanded not only of your head, but your heart. This is Oklahoma State University, America's brightest orange.
This is your time to grow, to become a leader in every respect by serving others before yourself and together, achieving far more than you ever thought possible. You're not just here for an education, but to forever color your future.
It's an attitude, it's a pride.
It represents community, it represents family.
It's something that I know that I'll always be able to come back to.
The color orange means everything to me.
There is nothing muted about it.
The color orange is so bold and bright, and it represents the spirit and energy that every cowboy has.
How can you not bleed orange would be my question.
55,000 people, and it's all orange. And it really is an amazing, amazing sight.
Orange is that feeling when you're more proud of anything than you've ever been in your whole life. It's something that you have to put yourself in to really appreciate. We're cowboys.
Welcome back to Countdown to Tip-Off here on O State TV. We're here in the North Dining Hall. Well, the Cowboy basketball program has changed a lot in the past year, let alone the last 11. About a month ago, OSU hired former Oral Roberts head coach Scott Sutton to join Boynton's staff. So I sat down with OSU color commentator John Holcomb, who's entering his 11th year in the role, to ask him about the Scott Sutton hiring, a little bit about the impact of the Sutton name on the bench, and much more. It's the beginning of a pretty interesting Cowboy basketball season. New coach, bringing in some new assistants. So start with this question. The Sutton name is big in college basketball, especially here in Stillwater with the program. I mean, the court's named after his father. So how big is it to have another Sutton in the program sitting on that bench every game?
Well, the immediate impact is, I think, twofold, Brian. And the first thing is you get the name back on the sidelines, on the bench. And that automatically, once the announcement was made, automatically some longtime OSU fans were like, okay, I'm back in with this because this is something we feel like we've missed for a long time. The second thing is you give Mike Boynton a second assistant with long history of head coaching. And he's a guy that already has helped Mike Boynton out. Boynton was telling us on Friday before the exhibition game that the one way that Scott has had an impact is he has an ability to communicate with the players and correct them without them feeling like it's a personal attack. And sometimes that's hard for coaches to do. But if you have any question about his dedication to this and coming back and the love for the university, all you had to do was watch him during the exhibition game. Bad calls or what was perceived to be bad calls or plays where guys didn't do the right thing, he's the one fist pumping and getting fired up about it. And he told me afterwards, he said, I got to watch it because I want to holler at the refs because I can't do it as much in this role.
When you first heard the news of Scott potentially and then actually coming here, what was your reaction, your thought about that?
Awesome home run type of hire. There have been a ton of things go on during the off season involving the program, starting with Brad Underwood leaving after a year. And to get some sort of something that longtime OSU fans can hold on to and understand and recognize, I think just from that alone, it's a very important hire.
How does he, or does he at all, compare to his father?
There's the fire, there's the passion for the game. I mean, that runs throughout the family. Sean was the same way, too, still is. And there's the, if you had to put it in one word, defense. I mean, it's a defense-first sort of thing. And the great story about Mike Boynton during the off-season going to visit Coach Sutton and telling him, look, I would like to bring this back, but I want your blessing. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said that Coach, who has not been able to communicate quite as well in recent months, really lit up when Mike asked him about that, and just, yes, you bet, do it. So the defensive philosophy, the attention to that side of the floor is such a key, and especially when you talk about a team like this season's team, when you've got some new faces, you don't have Juwan Evans, you're going to be searching a little bit for some offensive flow. You better have it together on the defensive end to have success.
Scott Sutton returning home is going to be huge for this program, a fresh face to move forward with. We're talking about moving forward. We have got to address the elephant in the room, this FBI scandal. Now, I was prepared to come out here and tell you guys that I thought that we could move forward, this program could move forward with their season. I thought that this FBI scandal came out early enough before the season started, and enough programs were implicated that it wasn't going to be a huge deal for the Cowboys. Well, then we got word about Jeff Carroll, and now I'm not so sure that this program can move past something that huge.
Well, Taylor, I mean, you bring up a valid point, especially because Jeffrey Carroll, we don't know how long he's going to be out because it's indefinitely, so it's not a timetable on it, and we don't know how long this scandal. But I think OSU's role in it isn't as big as people make it seem. I mean, you have other schools that's in this scandal, like Louisville. They lost their head coach. Rick Pitino is one of the greatest basketball minds ever, and he had to step down. And you had Auburn, their assistant coach, Chuck Person, a very respected NBA veteran who brings a lot of knowledge to his players. But then you have OSU, maybe it's just because of our name. And no disrespect to Lamont Evans, but he's not as big of a name as those guys, especially when you look at the situation with the Juwan Evans. All he did was sell Juwan Evans to a sports agency. Juwan was going to go to the NBA anyway. No way a player like that plays for a third coach in 3 years. So, I mean, we do have to move on from it with Jeffrey Carroll, but all it is to me is just motivation.
Well, in sports we see adversity all the time, whether it's a player getting injured, a coach getting fired, this or that. It all just comes down to whether the players and coaches let them be motivated by that. And something else they might be motivated by is the fact that the Cowboys were projected to finish last in the Big 12 this year. Now, with a player like Jeffrey Carroll, basketball is a sport where with 5 players in the court, one of those players can really carry you far. But now that we've learned that he's not going to be on the team this year, or at least not be playing as soon as we thought, I don't think it's that unrealistic to say that they'll finish last in the Big 12 without their star player there. But that remains to be seen how long he's out.
Yeah, and you're talking about motivation. I don't think there's any bigger motivation than being predicted to be last in the Big 12. In college basketball, we talk about Cinderella stories all season long leading into March Madness. I don't think that there's any better motivation for this team than being projected last in the Big 12.
Yeah, and this conference is certainly in a little bit of a flux recently. Iowa State lost a couple big players. We don't know how they'll be. Last year we saw TCU projected last. They ended up at the top half of the conference because they had a new coach come in and some players step up. So it's definitely in flux. But speaking of players that need to step up, OSU needs a new player to step up this year, and I think that's going to be Tavares Shine replacing Jeffrey Carroll. Last year, Tavares only played in 6 games before getting injured, but he was averaging 17 minutes a game. Then in the exhibition game on Friday, Shine scored 19 points and grabbed 7 rebounds in his 27 minutes of play. And he was able to hit 5 threes. So the team's really going to need that production from Shine if they expect to replace the production from Jeffrey Carroll on this team this season.
I'm really happy for Shine. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's coming back from a back injury. Injuries like that, those could be career enders. Coach Boynton said it himself earlier this week. He didn't even know if Shine was still going to play basketball anymore. But Shine, he brings that heart. He brings that passion. I remember meeting him freshman year. We're both seniors now. He said, I came here to win championships. And so, I mean, he doesn't care about those projections. So they mean nothing to him. It's going to be about going out and winning the big games. And speaking of big games this year, we just had Bedlam last weekend in football. But my big game is Bedlam in Norman in January. On January 3rd, we returned to Norman to try to beat them again, because I don't know if you all remember, we beat them and it was a little bit of a controversy. I mean, you had the block at the end. We weren't projected to win, even though we were clearly the better team. It was a down year for OU, but OU hasn't forgotten about that. We swept them. We beat them in Norman. We beat them in Stillwater. So, they have some new weapons this year. They have Oklahoma native, highly touted freshman Trae Young. But we'll be ready for that. I mean, this team may not have Juwan or Phil, but Bedlam is big. You just throw the records out of the building. And so Bedlam, to me, is going to be big. First conference road game. And so it'll be a true testament. We might have Jeffrey back for that game. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, conference games are always big. TCU coming in, West Virginia coming in over Christmas break, that'll be big.
And speaking of big games, we talked about the football just a few seconds ago. Our football team is back, after a heartbreaking loss at Bedlam, and Jackson has more about who they'll play tomorrow.
Thank you, Richard. And yes, the basketball season does start tonight, but there's still some football left to be played. The Cowboys head to Ames this weekend, and a lot of eyes are going to be on Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell. Now, this is Campbell's second year at the helm for the Cyclones, and he had some growing pains in his first year, only winning 3 games. But so far this year, the Cyclones have 6 wins on the season, and 4 of those coming from the Big 12. Now, the Cowboys bring with them an all-star slate of wide receivers, headlined by James Washington. The Cyclones have a James Washington of their own in Allen Lazard. When comparing the two, Washington doubles Lazard in yards, but Lazard isn't far behind when it comes to receptions and touchdowns. Now, back in 2015, the last time the Cowboys visited Ames, they had to come back from a 24-7 deficit before sealing the win. Expect another dogfight this weekend in Ames.
We've been talking about it all night, and now we're finally just minutes away from Oklahoma State's first basketball game of the season. The start of TV on Fox College Sports, or if you're near radio, you can listen on Cowboy Radio Network.
And that'll do it for us here on Countdown to Tip-Off on O State TV. For Richard Denson, I'm Brian Schroll.
And for Luke Garza, I'm Taylor Hernandez. Thank you guys so much for joining us.